I wanted to talk about oppression today, and I know what you're all thinking. That's a loaded term. That's a social justice warrior word. Why the fuck are we even discussing such a concept when there really isn't much to talk about? But I disagree with those sentiments. In fact, I find oppression and the study of oppression quite fascinating, especially coming from the feminist standpoint. Because when I think of oppression, I think of things like what Hitler did to the Jews, what the Hutus did to the Tutsis, what the Japanese did to the Chinese, that sort of thing. What doesn't come to my mind is the perils and plights of North American women. And objectively, I had to ask myself, why is that? My detractors by now are surely skeptical and probably cynical about what I'm about to say, given how critical I've been of feminists in the past. But I am genuinely curious about exploring this topic, especially considering the vast difference in the way I would define oppression versus the way that a feminist would. I think magnitude has something to do with what I would consider oppression. For example, using the rape of Nanking, soldiers throwing out your customs, invading your country, and inputting their own customs, and forcing everyone around you to obey them is oppression. I think that oppression would be soldiers torturing, raping, and killing innocent people just because of the color of their skin. That's oppression. Canada forcing all Japanese Canadians to internment camps when they have done nothing wrong, just based on the color of their skin. Again, that is what I would consider oppression. But would I consider manspreading oppression? Would I consider a guy making a rape joke oppression? Would I consider things like Grand Theft Auto and Hitman Absolution a form of oppression? Absolutely not. When you consider rape, torture, and mass genocide against the perils of modern day feminism, like how best to regulate safe spaces, do those things even compare with one another? And again, I'm not saying women haven't faced some form of unfairness in society. I'm not saying that there aren't instances of prejudice against women. There most certainly are. But to label it as oppression, I think, goes far beyond what I would consider reasonable. The second criteria I would use, which is probably my weakest, would be what could a person do if they felt that they were wronged? In North America, the answer is usually quite a lot. If someone faced wage inequity, for example, if a man and a woman did the exact same work but got paid differently, and I do mean exact same work, all things held constant, and her boss was just being a dick to her and paid her 20 times less than her male coworker, then she could go to HR. She could hire a private lawyer. She could go to a civil rights group. There are so many ways of recourse just to handle that situation. And of course, one could argue that these things don't work, or they're just trying to hide the actual problem. They don't actually fix it. A society should fix the actual problem rather than just put band-aid solutions. You could argue all of that, and to a certain extent, I will grant some of those answers as true. But the fact still remains that in a non-oppressed state, a person can be free to contest the injustices done to them. And again, when you couple that with what the Jews could do against Nazi Germany, or what the Tutsis could do to the militant Hutus, you don't really have much of a comparison, now do you? Third would be your political position, or, to put more bluntly, how much shit you can get done if you bitch and moan loud enough. How popular do you think I would be if I said that we should just abolish all of those women-only domestic violence shelters and those women-only homeless shelters and have shelters for everyone? Because domestic violence and homelessness is not a gender-specific issue, nor should it be. I mean, I would be so unpopular because I'd be accused of hating women, I'd be accused of being a misogynist, and more likely than not, feminists are going to try and discredit me to the best of their ability. And people would believe, because they watch news, oh, well, Truth of the People is an evil, horrible misogynist. More often than not, in North America at the very least, we see feminists get their way when there's even a slight bit of outrage from their camp. I mean, when you consider how a woman's word can completely destroy a male student's reputation at a university if she accuses him of rape without any sort of evidence whatsoever, when you consider that a women's interest group has so much lobbying power over these big companies, you're talking about having a power that has never been experienced by a good portion of the male population, and yet you want to claim that you're oppressed. And before some feminist takes me out of context and says I don't take the issues that women have to face in the first world seriously, I absolutely do, okay? I'm all about equality. Whether you're a feminist or an MRA or an egalitarian, whatever you want to call yourself, I don't care. If you want to support equal rights for both genders, that's fine. And maybe you have issues that are exclusive to your demographic. But is it enough to say that society hates you and oppresses you as a whole? I don't think so. I'm not convinced. And I think it is, at the very least, slightly insulting to those who have faced true oppression in the past by comparing the atrocities they've faced to the first world problems you currently face. That's all I'm saying. May the truth always be heard. Peace.